What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today, this is The Boys, Season 1, Episode 7, the penultimate episode of the season. Uh, Presumably, some heavy stuff is going to go down in Episode 8. We've left definitely some characters in some precarious situations. So we're going to break it down a little bit here. I don't do like a literal play-by-play. I just kind of give my thoughts on some of the things. Again, blind film critics, so this show does have audio description on Amazon. And today I've got a black baseball cap backwards. I'm wearing a Fast and Furious t-shirt, which is not really appropriate for the boys. And I got my black sunglasses on. So what do we got here? We have which character to start with? I always kind of want to start with, so Joe pops up still. He's still following Butcher around, even after the revelation from last week. By the way, recaps are spoilers, so inherently by nature. So if you haven't gotten that yet, So Joe, the character played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who doesn't actually exist, and is in Butcher's head, is still following Butcher around. So he's there. He doesn't seem to necessarily agree with everything Butcher's doing. Butcher returns to the group, and he's honest about having the doctor and he's somewhat honest about the other stuff. He doesn't mention the fact that he talks to people that aren't really there, but he's pretty honest with the group, and he says, it'd be great if we could get this doctor to make a version just for Homelander and just for the VP. And then they tell the doctor they just want one for Homelander. So and then the other thing that Butcher has done is brought Frenchie out. So Frenchie's out of jail for this, and I'll come back to him in a minute. So Butcher sort of like is featured quite heavily throughout the episode. He sends Ryan a Christmas gift. Ryan's filming like this Christmas special that he does not feel great about, and that Christmas gift really sort of, I think, hits him in a certain way. And it's funny because like it's not signed by anybody, but it just says "Don't be a cunt," and like he just knows. And Ryan's just like, "Oh, I know who gave me this," and inside it's a picture of Butcher and his mom together. So yeah, Ryan is, the song that these puppets are singing around him is really cringeworthy, and it's like very sort of McCarthyism, the Red Scare, just trying to get people to report on your friends and neighbors and family members. It's like a song telling little kids to report on their parents, which Brian is like, I'm not good with that. The funny thing is, he doesn't really seem to have a problem with a lot of the other lyrics, which all of them are problematic. But it's really, Homelander finds out and he leaves him a voicemail message. It's like, yeah, just, buck it up and do it for me. Thanks. Love you. Bye, Dad. And Ryan's like, well, that's not really helpful. You didn't really listen to me. It's just like one line. Just take out the thing about the parents, like don't report on your parents. Like, I think that would have solved a lot, honestly, from Homelander's perspective. It's like, like, okay, so Ryan reports on Homelander, well, you're my dad, I'm reporting on you. How'd that feel? You told me to, he would hate that. So it's something that, it's something that he's putting out there for everybody, but it doesn't actually really make a lot of sense in practice. And it's the one thing that Ryan actually is rubbed the wrong way about. So he eventually gets the other way, but I feel like he would have filmed the special. So I'm not totally like, yeah, Ryan's a great kid now. I feel like he still's influenced a lot by Homelander, but Homelander lost the battle because he didn't take out the thing about parents. Because obviously Ryan still would never have reported on his mom. And he should just know better. Like, the thing about Homelander is he just never thinks anything through. So that's that's basically all Ryan does this episode, is this cringy Christmas special. Butcher, meanwhile, part of his plan, the team splits up and they have to go different ways and do different things, and he ends up with Starlight in a situation where they have to fight uh, Deep and Black Noir. And I love when Black Noir speaks and they're like, does he speak? And I'm like, yeah, I've been like asking myself that question the whole time. I'm like, why is he speaking so much? Like, even if he's been replaced, did somebody not tell him that the last Black Noir, and how does he have the same powers as Black Noir? Like, if he's a new Black, like, what? I'm so confused as to what they're doing with Black Noir this season. I feel like I missed something. And even if I missed like part of it, the other stuff doesn't make sense. Because if he's supposed to be somebody pretending to be Black Noir, then why is he talking so damn much? Because everybody keeps noticing it. They're like, why are you talking? it's like, but yeah, the Deep has gone off the deep end. Um, and they fight, and Butcher and later they get help from Melk and from A-Train. We'll get that, but I'm wrapping up Butcher's storyline. So Butcher ends up uh, like having a medical episode sort of at the end of the whole thing after defeating Deep and Noir. So they don't die. Very few people die in this episode. So yeah, he passes out in a bar, and Joe has a smirk on his face like he knows. And there has been that weird worm thing, so I don't know what's going to happen to Butcher, but I feel like he has to make the final season. It'd be so weird if he wasn't. Like, I don't even know why would you do that? Like, why would you take him out right before the final season? It's so weird. But so many other shows have taken out characters and then gone on. Like, to me, it's bizarre that like Meredith Grey is not on Grey's Anatomy. Like, the show's literally called Grey's Anatomy. There are no Greys on Grey's Anatomy. So, um, and when Red's daughter left the blacklist, I was like, I thought that was the whole point of the show. Why are we still going? Liz was that her name? So like there have been some character exits that I feel like are kind of like, well, I feel like this is where we should end the show, but we're not. This is strange. Oh, we're gonna keep going. So yeah, Butcher feels like a character probably more so than anyone else in The Boys who has to make season 5. I feel like we're building to a Butcher versus Homelander. Those two characters, season 5. Kind of want to say Huey has to make season 5. I'm not really sure anybody else has to. Um, I feel like anybody else could be a shocking end of season 4 death, and it would be surprising, but it doesn't feel like their character has been building to that narrative necessarily. So, meanwhile, Melk he originally passed off the baton to Butcher because of his heart thing from last episode. But A-Train rallies him. He talks about how when he saved Melk, it made him actually feel good because there was like a little kid that saw it, and he was like, that made me feel better than anything I've ever done. And from, coming out of Bot Tower. So A-Train feels more like a hero. And so A-Train comes in and helps and saves. He tries to save Ashley, but Ashley doesn't want to be saved. She's just like, they had like a conversation about how they need to run because Homelander's looking for the leak still. They know that it wasn't the conservative Vought reporter that they killed. So they're still looking for the actual one. And she reminds him to take out his chip. So he's off. He ran. A-Train is somewhere else. Melk fights and realizes he gets his wife and daughter out of the country. He gets them passes and puts them on a plane. Presumably, we don't actually see them fly away, so who knows? But presumably they left, and he got them safely as far away from Homelander as he could to some random country somewhere, which probably still has soups. So who knows? They might have their own Homelander down there. Did you check? The Deep lets his octopus lover die, has a fight with her. Her tank breaks and she like gasps for air and then dies, uh, because he believes that he's above it now. Like he doesn't need to have sex with fish anymore or whatever. Like Sage has given him self-confidence. Sage, meanwhile, I guess got the bullet out of her head because she seems ready to think again. Um, but Homelander's not having it. And when she says to Homelander that she knew that A-Train was the leak, but was using him to feed the information that she wanted him to feed to Butcher, and company, that just pisses Homelander off. But he doesn't kill her. He lets her leave. But still, Sage seems pretty upset by the whole thing. Um, and I think it's interesting that her character's still alive, because when you have somebody like her in play, uh, what could she possibly do? I feel like that's not the last we've seen of Sage. Um, you don't take the person who is the smartest person in the world and let them walk off the show and then we never hear from them again. I just don't think that's going to happen. So basically, Homelander is now just with Firecracker, who found Webweaver, and Webweaver, says it was him, that he was which he was, but he wasn't leaking what Homelander thinks he was leaking. So, and he keeps doing this thing where he keeps like grossly like ejaculating his web stuff all over the wall behind, like just, and Homelander's just like, oh God. And I just knew. I was like, Homelander's gonna kill this dude, if not for the fact that he's just grossed out by his power. But he just, again, they go for the most brutal way possible, in a way that even like Firecracker was like, what? Like, there was like a note in the audio description about how like she's just like shocked. Like, I was like, girl, what did you think you're getting into? You know? Firecracker doesn't really do much, except for the fact that she gets to throw her newfound power around now that Homelander likes her a little bit more, and she has breast milk. I don't know. She's just, but she doesn't get to go off on random tirades or anymore. She just has a little bit higher standing, and she has one up to Sage. So, win for her. A-Train doesn't do much except he runs in and like runs out, and they mention that he got his family out too. So A-Train's family has also left, and they don't know where A-Train is at the end of this episode. Homelander, the biggest moment is killing Webweaver and firing Sage, and leaving a voicemail for Ryan, like being mad at Deep and Noir for not being able to win a fight. I don't know, like he doesn't really, again, not a whole lot of big Homelander moves here. Vicky didn't show up in this episode, so no heads explode. Down in so Frenchie teams up with Yumiko, and they go down and they hang out with the doctor while he's trying to develop the thing that would kill Homelander. And they kind of bond, and she opens up about her backstory about why she doesn't talk. And we learn that it's nothing actually happened to her. She has vocal cords still, but she went through such like a brutalized way of training to get her to where she is now, that she found out that because there was something about her process where like the first person to make a sound died, so she was so used to not making any sound that when she found out that she had gotten through that she couldn't speak anymore, that she still couldn't like somebody had like deprogrammed her to where she couldn't speak. So technically at some point we could actually hear her, which I think is really weird, because you would think like with screaming and stuff that like she would still, it's so weird that they deprogrammed her to a point where she can't even scream like in pain. because in this episode, when they're not paying attention and Frenchie still obviously cares about her, but he's obviously dealing with a lot of demons on his own. He injects the doctor, Samir, whatever his name is, injects the cure into Yumiko. So she starts to react to it, and it starts dramatically affecting her leg. And she has a healing factor too, by the way, that a lot of the other heroes don't have. So if anything, her body would be fighting it much like it's like if you try to do something to Wolverine, right? So it's a lot harder to kill the people who have the healing factor because they can actually heal. And Marvel went to the extreme length of, I remember one time in the Marvel comic books with Wolverine, where he fought the Hulk, and the Hulk literally tore him in half and threw his body like I don't know, like half of his body was like miles away, and Wolverine had to like crawl like his torso back to the bottom half of his body because it wasn't dead somehow magically in the whole thing. So yeah, it's the healing factor thing can really in superhero worlds can do a lot for you. And in this way, it allows Frenchie to cut off her leg, and they have the leg and Walking Dead rules, basically. Like, oh, you just got bit by the zombie, we got to cut off your arm real fast, like before it travels through the blood. So those rules apply. So they remove the limb and she's fine. She's, I don't know if she grows the leg back. I was a little unclear as to that, because I think I feel like she grew another body part back in another, like she's done that before. I feel like she's grown body parts back. Anyway, so the leg, they put on ice, and they're like, oh, well, we think we can extract the virus from that leg. And will it be enough to kill Homelander? No, but it might be for Vicky, for the VP. So we don't know where we're going in season 8. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was Huey and Starlight. And basically in this episode, we find a shapeshifter who is trapped in this house. It looks like they're trapped in a house anyway, and then they're not. And they fight. And the way that they do shapeshifting in this series is the grossest way to do shapeshifting. Like, somebody thought of this, and somebody was like, well, what if instead of just magically the skin becomes something else, what if they literally shed a layer of skin and then underneath it there's like a new person? So that's kind of what happens. That's the loose way of describing it. So she has to pull off her old skin and throw it. So like she's in this thing and she's like removing skin and like ripping her face off, and like underneath it is like a new face. And I'm like, I don't know how gory this is getting, because again, there has to be like something she's in the middle of changing into somebody else. So feasibly her new look is underneath everything. So, this comes back to bite everybody in the ass, because they're like, well, if she's a shapeshifter, she could be anybody, right? And they're like, that's scary, because they think that she's the assassin that they're setting up to kill off the presidential candidate. But Huey confronts her, by the way, and she's like, about the camps or whatever, and it's like, of course she, what, that was one scene where I just didn't understand why we were doing this. But other than, I guess Vicky was in the episode. Never mind, she was in the episode, because Huey went to her for like 2 seconds. I forgot it because it was like the only useless scene in the episode. I was like, why are we doing this scene? But so the shapeshifter ends up coming back around, pretends to be like a fan of Starlight, takes like a selfie with her, and then later on we see, and here's the funny thing is, because I knew This was I had a feeling this is exactly what the scene was when it happened. When they mentioned it and Huey's hand was cut and stuff like that, and they were like, and Huey was like, "Oh, she could be anybody. That's terrifying." Um, so they make this big between Huey and Starlight, this big fight about the fact that Huey kept Starlight's dress, and uh, so later at the end of the episode, they finish and Huey's, I don't know, finishing something, and then Starlight comes out. She's wearing her costume, and he's like, "I thought you threw that away," and she's like, "Well, I thought maybe, you know." Maybe you would like to see it one more time. I don't know. I just, and she's it kind of seems like Starlight, but immediately I was like, that's the shapeshifter. I was like, this is the shapeshifter. Um, and unfortunately, Huey does not pick up on it and they have sex. And meanwhile, we cut to where Starlight actually is, and she's chained up in a basement somewhere and is royally fucked while somebody is fucking somebody who looks like her. So, who then wakes up and then uses her, the fact that she looks like Starlight, to open a secret safe and steal the laptop that has all the information about Vicky on it. So she's obviously working for Vicky. So Vicky's now clear and can do whatever the fuck she wants because the boys no longer have any leverage on her, supposedly. I think that's where they're going with that. So we're leading into a season finale. Do I think somebody's going to die? Absolutely. I do. Who do I think is on the table to die? We've only got one season left. And I think I would not be shocked if the boys had a loss. I don't think it's going to be Starlight. I think that's a little too obvious with her in the basement. I think she'll make it to the final season. Like I said, I feel like you can't do the final season without Homelander, Butcher, and Huey. I don't know what they're doing with Butcher, though. He hit the floor, he's out cold, and he's terminal, basically, because of the brain tumor. He won't survive the run of the show, I don't think. I think his journey is to die while battling Homelander, possibly the two of them together in some sort of, where he sacrifices himself but also kills Homelander in the process. I think that's where we're headed. But it does make me. Ryan will be fine. They're not going to kill off Ryan before the final season. There's no reason to. I just don't see that. Frenchie could sacrifice himself because he's not really. There isn't really a reason to keep him around, and he's feeling so much guilt. He feels like the kind of person who would sacrifice himself for somebody else at this point, especially if it's for the people that he loves. So I could see that happening. And as far as anybody on the 7, which is not even the 7 anymore, like I don't even know how many people are on this team. Fill out your team, bro. Like we're the 7. How many of there are you? 4? I don't know. We're down to like 4. We're down to, it's like him, Firecracker, Deep, and Black Noir now. I know he was holding a spot for Ryan, and he A-Train obviously just left and Sage left, but I think isn't he still short a spot? Like, anyway, yeah, so fill out, bring more people in to the 7, maybe give the shapeshifter a chance. I don't know, or a name. Yeah, so I don't think Firecracker is going to go. I think if anybody on that team goes, it'll either be Noir or Deep. I think Sage is probably safe because I think she's probably going to come back around. There's a reason she's not dead. Because, again, Homelander would kill anything. And he kind of makes that point to her. So there's something big that they've got for Sage. She didn't just live so that later on she can just be like, well, died. No, I think they're going to come back around and use her again. Homelander's either going to come back and be like, I need you. I'm sorry. I Apologize. She's there for a reason. So, I could see this, whatever is happening with this noir could die, or Deep. So, but it'll be interesting to see who dies in the season finale. We've had some big deaths before. We've kind of dodged most of them this season. Most of the deaths have been sort of on the smaller end of things. Tech 9, I guess, is probably the biggest death. Ashley could die. There's not a whole lot of reason for her to still be around. So, but anyway, I like the episode. It's a long ass recap, but it does break down everything for you. So, thanks for watching. I'm going to give The Boys season 1 episode 7 an A. I thought it was entertaining. So let me know what you think in the comments. Click like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the other side.